Today we're doing a full in-depth review on this bad boy. It's the Sony E PZ for power zoom, 18 to 105 f4. It's a rather unique lens from Sony. It's a crop sensor lens, and we're going to break down everything that's important as usual to help you determine whether this lens is going to be right for you or not. Let's get started. So that's right, today we're checking out this guy, the 18 to 105 f4, and we're going to answer everything that you need to know about this lens. And here's some specs to get you going first, and also I wanted to answer who this lens is actually for. Well, typically you're not going to find this in a professional's bag. It's going to be more tailored toward a beginner or an intermediate shooter. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and we will get into them. And if you haven't seen one of my videos before, my name's Stefan Malloch. I do a lot of photography and filmmaking, news reviews, and tutorials. So if you do enjoy this content, if you like this video, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. Anyways, let's dive into build. So looking at a quick unboxing of this lens, it doesn't come with much, your typical paperwork, the lens, and a lens hood. And that's it. The lens itself is a great size for what it is, measuring only 4¼ inches long and 6 inches with the lens hood installed. And because it's internally focusing and zooming, what you see is what you get in terms of size. Both the zoom and the focus ring turn nice and smoothly, and it does take a little bit of getting used to because they're both electronically coupled to your camera, as well as that power zoom switch. I think Sony definitely had video shooters in mind when they designed this lens. Weighing just under a pound, it's also quite light, making it great for travel as well as gimbal work. Although not the best quality, it does have a sturdy feeling design, and the only buttons you'll find on it is that power zoom switch. On the front you'll find 72mm filter threads, and one thing I'm not too fond about this lens is its minimum focusing distance. On the wide side it's about 1.5 feet, and when you're zoomed all the way in, it's just over 3 feet. Not a very good performance in that aspect. On the back of this lens you'll find your typical metal mount, and unfortunately there's a lack of weather sealing when it comes to a rubber gasket, which is a questionable decision because this camera is completely electronically coupled, and a little bit of weather sealing would have been nice in that regard. Looking at the build of this lens as a whole, it's definitely not Sony's best, and it's not their worst, somewhere in the middle, and I give it 3.5 stars. When it comes to value, I think this lens is exactly where it should be in terms of price. There's lots of lenses that are a lot better and more expensive, and there's also lenses that are worse and cheaper. So this is kind of an all-around lens, and at about $500 to $600, you can expect an average performance on par with an average price. As far as value goes, it's nothing spectacular for the price, and I give it 3 stars. Okay, so now let's dive into performance. And why don't we jump right into the autofocus system and see how that performs. A few good things include its smoothness as well as being almost silent. It's not the world's fastest, but it does the job. It performs relatively well in good light. In average light, it's, well, average. And in poor light, it performs fairly poor. And keep in mind that it does have a minimum aperture of f4, so it's not going to be great in those super low light situations. As well, it's just the capabilities of the APS-C camera sensor. Autofocus when it comes to stills was great, it's reliable. Even in low light, I found myself never really missing a shot when it mattered. And that's what's important. The bokeh you get with this lens is definitely not out of this world. It has 7-bladed aperture, so it's not the best, and it's definitely not the worst I've seen. For a G-series lens, it's okay. Having a look at the sharpness and the optics of this lens, it's pretty much the same story across all focal lengths and all apertures. In the center, it's decently sharp. However, into the corners, the performance is a little bit poor. Stop down for a little bit of an improvement, but never really a sharp, exciting performance into the corners. And after about f11, it starts to degrade even more. Zoomed in all the way to 105, it's pretty much the same story. decently sharp in the center, and once again, unimpressively sharp in the corners. Stopping down, again, all the way down to f11 for a slight improvement, and after f11 it's going to be the same story with diffraction, giving you a bit of softness. All in all, a decent performer for the money, but don't expect miracles. Distortion and vignetting are going to be quite noticeable if you're not using in-camera corrections or a profile correction in Lightroom, and here's the difference between it off and here it is on. And zoomed all the way into 105, it's even worse. The distortion is absolutely terrible, but when you turn on the profile correction, it clears it right up. Another great feature of this lens is image stabilization, and it's great to have whether you're shooting in low light or when you're hand holding all the way zoomed into 105. Here's what it looks like on and off. And remember, it's not just good for video, it's also great for stills, letting you use some incredibly slow shutter speeds and still getting usable photos. This lens, being an 18 to 105mm, is actually a 27 to 158mm equivalent when you're shooting on a crop body camera. This makes it quite versatile and an all-around great shooter for pretty much everything. So all around when it comes to performance, yeah, it's not the best lens by any means when it comes to optics and sharpness, but it's got some great features, and overall it's a pretty versatile lens. I give it 3.5 stars. So wrapping up, this lens is definitely a unique design from Sony, and I don't think it's going to be for everybody. It definitely has a few features geared toward video makers as well as amateur or beginner photographers. It's an all-around versatile lens with decent image quality, and like always, here's my personal pros and cons for this lens. So rating this lens as a whole, I have to think about who it's really for. It's for a beginner or intermediate photographer, maybe interested in some video, and it actually does tick a lot of the boxes that you might be looking for getting into this. It's a decent and versatile lens with some extra features, and for that reason I give it 4 stars. If you're a subscriber, you also know that I like to rate things on a scale from never think about again to consider to definitely buy. And if you are a beginner to intermediate photographer looking to upgrade your kit lens to a versatile all-around lens, this might be the one for you, and I'd consider it. So that's going to be it for my review of the Sony 18 to 105 f4. I hope you liked this video. I hope it helped you out, and if it did, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. Drop your questions and comments down below. If you want to buy this lens, if you want to pick it up, I'll leave affiliate links in the description for you as well. And like always, make mistakes, be yourself, and get out there and take some more pictures. See you next time.